Iran Aseman Airlines Flight 3704 was operating a domestic scheduled passenger flight from Iranian capital Tehran Mehrabad International Airport to Yasuj Airport in Yasuj, the capital of Kohgiluyeh and Boyer-Ahmad Province in southwest Iran. The flight was supposed to take about 50 minutes. It took off from Tehran with 60 passengers and 6 crew members on February 18, 2018 at about 4:35 Universal Time Coordinated.
Before watching the video, can you please save a little bit time, like and subscribe to SkypluS Have Mover to increase?
It was initially reported that 59 passengers and 6 crew members were presumed to be on board. It was later revealed that there were 60 passengers and 6 crew members aboard. The flight manifest was consisted of 65 adults and 1 child. There were 60 passengers, 2 security guards, 2 flight attendants and 2 flight crew members. The aircraft involved was an ATR 72-212 with MSN 391. It was registered EPATS and was delivered to Iran Aseman Airlines in 1993. No serious incidents were reported during the aircraft's service with the airline. An Iranian source reported that the aircraft had recently resumed operations after being out of service for 7 years due to a lack of spare parts and that it had technical problems during a flight some weeks before the crash. The captain of the flight was Hojatullah Falati, identified as 62-year-old. He had accumulated a total flying hours of more than 17,000 hours, of which 12,000 hours were on the type. The pilot also had experience of flying in India from 2002 to 2007, before returning to Iran Aseman Airlines. His flying certificate was deemed as valid. The first officer Kiva Khalili, 36-year-old with a total flying hours of approximately 1,800 flying hours, including 197 hours on the type.
Rotate. Positive brake. Zero.
At 5:49 Universal Time Coordinated, as Flight 3704 approached Yasuj, the flight crew asked the meteorological information in Yasuj. Yasuj Tower later informed Flight 3704 about the weather condition and mentioned that the final approach path was clear. The flight later was cleared to descent to FL-170 by Tehran and was handed over to Yasuj on 5:53 Universal Time Coordinated, but the crew stated that they would continue the approach with FL-150. At 5:55, the crew reported that they were 25 miles from the destination airport. Yasuj Tower then told the pilot about the updated condition in Yasuj, stating that clouds were slowly moving to the south. 4 minutes later, Yasuj asked the flight again and the crew responded that they failed to receive the signal of distance measuring equipment, DME, from their navigational device. The crew then checked about the weather condition in the area again. At 6:04 Universal Time Coordinated, Yasuj Tower lost communication contact with Flight 3704. Attempts had been made to re-establish communication with the aircraft but failed.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Too low. Terrain.
Locals reported that they had heard the aircraft hit the mountain. Iranian authorities in neighboring Shiraz and Isfahan province had deployed 2 of their helicopters to the crash site. A total of 12 search and rescue teams had been dispatched to Mount Dina, but due to foggy conditions, rescue helicopters could not reach the crash site in the Zagros Mountains. On February 20th, 2 helicopters from Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Air Force sighted the wreckage of the aircraft, 30 meters, 100 feet, below the peak of the mountain south of Nokhalet and Eliva. Another military helicopter sighted the wreckage and pinpointed the crash site. The aircraft was obliterated, with large portion of the tail cone, the vertical stabilizer, the rudder and the empennage were found. Scattered bodies could be seen around the wreckage. No survivors were seen at the crash site. All 60 passengers and 6 crew members on board died. As helicopters were unable to land on the crash site, the recovery of the victims had to be done on foot. Officials stated that the bodies had to be carried on the rescuers' backs to the mountain foot. As of February 21st, at least 32 bodies had been recovered from the crash site. On March 3rd, Iranian officials announced they had found the flight recorders. The crew of Flight 3704 had deviated from its operating manual. During Flight 3704's approach to Mount Dina, the ATC had given clearance for the flight to fly at FL 170. ATC later informed the crew that the ceiling was at 15,000 feet. The CVR recording revealed that the crew decided to descend further to an elevation of 15,000 feet so that the aircraft would get out of clouds. The minimum altitude for the airport, however, was 15,500 feet, so the crew was going to fly under the approved minimum altitude. During its descent, the aircraft encountered an updraft and later a downdraft. The downdraft was strong enough to cause the nose pitch to rise. As the pitch was increased by the force of the downdraft, the airspeed decreased and the drag force increased accordingly, risking a stall condition to occur. As the power lever was increased to counter the low speed of the aircraft, the pitch kept increasing and the airspeed kept decreasing, at one point reaching 118 knots. The nose pitch reached plus 15 degrees. While the crew tried to counter the stall condition by bringing the nose down, the crew didn't execute the recovery properly. The engine was not in full power and the flaps were not set to 15 degrees. It was presumed that the crew didn't expect to encounter a mountain wave phenomenon in the area, and thus this might have decreased their situational awareness. As the pilots tried to save the aircraft by bringing the nose down, there was no more altitude left for a safe recovery. The crash highlighted the danger of mountain wave and the aviation industry's lack of awareness of the issue. The Iranian CAO published several recommendations to ICAO and the European Aviation Safety Agency to address the hazard that a mountain wave may pose to the safety of a flight. Subsequently, the crash also led to changes of the weather training programs for airliners in Iran.
Thank you for watching the video. If you have an idea of the flight, please comment below to everyone discuss.